Hello, I'm Steph from iDriver Classic, and the gentleman sat next to me probably needs no introduction. It is, of course, Chris Goffey, legendary motoring journalist, and I believe you're the longest running presenter of Top Gear as well.
Well, it is no longer, so nobody's going to challenge me, are they? You know, yes, I think I did 17 years on it, which is petrifying to think back, isn't it?
It's quite an achievement, and we've got lots of questions to ask you. So first of all, I must ask, what is it like being back around all these Citroens?
Well, it's very nostalgic. I always liked Citroens. When I was 17, I was desperate for my first car, and I should have bought a Morris Minor or a Volkswagen Beetle or something like that. No, idiot, went and bought a Traction, blue Traction, and the attraction was it had a 15-foot tank aerial on the back with a flag on. And I thought, if I go roaring round northward in this, everybody will see me and it'll be really good fun.
Yeah.
But you could actually see the road through the floorboards. And I drove it down to, it used to fill up with smoke if you went over about 40 or 50 miles an hour, and oil smoke. And I drove it down to Cornwall to see my parents, because my father was at the RAF station at St Morgan. And coming across Bodmin Moor, the smoke cleared and the old car suddenly bounded forward quicker than it ever gone before, because it had emptied its sump between London and halfway down to Cornwall, so there was no smoke because there was no oil, and then it had the most colossal bang and everything blew apart in the engine. So that was the end of my first Traction. I sold it to a dealer who gave me 10 quid for it, for spares.
And I assume it's no longer out there.
Oh, I don't know, I think you're talking 19, I don't know what it would be, 62, 63, something like that. And of course, it's no secret that they used to rust.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And this one had done it rather more than any other, you know.
Well, at least it gave you some good memories.
But it was blue and it was fun.
Absolutely. Now, in terms of all these vehicles that are around us, we're here today at the Citroen Car Club Rally, but you have driven thousands of cars and probably experienced every manufacturer out there. What is it that keeps bringing you back to Citroen?
I don't know. I did you can still find it, I think, on YouTube. We did a documentary on the conservatoire with all the old models and everything, and I suddenly thought, do you know, I've driven every model of, that's in here, which is crazy, apart from the very old ones, of course, but they let me drive the prototype 2CV.
Did they?
And they said, be very careful. I went, yeah, I'll be very careful. We drove around. And he said, and don't use the brakes. I said, oh, why not? He said, they are magnesium drums, and if they shatter, there are no more. So do not touch the brakes. Driving around the factory in this TCV. But no, they're cars of character, and there's too much, faceless cars around today, and something with a bit of character and a bit of history to it, and Andre's fingerprint on it made all the difference.
No, I would agree with that. Now, we talk about, there's been a big thing in the press just recently around the Ford Capri and Ford reviving that name, but of course Citroen have done a little bit of this with the electric Ami. What are your thoughts on manufacturers bringing back iconic names that mean so much to people?
I think Ford have made a mistake with that particular Capri, because the Capri was such a idiosyncratic, if you like, car. I mean, it was our Mustang, wasn't it, when it first came out, and subsequent developments of it. And then it became a quick car as well. Apart from being an Archer's star, Eddie Grundy was always aspired to a Capri, if you reference that not many people will get. And in fact, I tweeted about it some time ago that we'd been at the Mark II Capri launch. And it was one of the best launches I think I ever went to, because we all sat down, had a meal and drink, as you know how it happens. Yeah. And they said, and now, ladies and gentlemen, Peter Cook and Dudley Moore are going to entertain you. And Peter Cook came on with Dudley Moore, and they did a routine. And then Dudley sat at his piano with us all grouped round and played music all night and joked and laughed. And I thought, do you know, that that's something I can tell my grandchildren, you know. Sorry, I was just saying it's such an iconic car then, and the new iteration looks a bit bland, doesn't it? And it looks like a copy of something else.
Yeah, I think for me, I look at it and it just looks very bloated. It's not a standout car. You look at a Capri and you think, wow, an original Capri. And you look at the Capri of today and it just doesn't have that lust factor that you had with the original car. That's my personal opinion anyway.
You know, the racing success of it in European racing, and you know, there's so many stories about the Capri, you know. And, when I was on Autocar, one of our staff cars was a 3-litre, a highly tuned 3-litre Capri, and we all used to borrow it and go roaring around like lunatics in it. And then, you know, the broad speed cars and things like that came up, and, you know, just, you know, great fun car. I can't see much fun in the new one.
No, I would concur on that. I mean, all the old ones used to be stolen and people were lusty on the racing. I don't think anyone's going to be stealing one of these.
Everybody says the Sweeney, don't they? Remember, it was always the gangster's car in the Sweeney or something, you know. Yeah.
What do you think of the Ami electric though? Because I love that.
I haven't any experience of it. I have fairly deep reservations about electric cars anyway, because I don't think they've solved the supply problem of the raw materials. And, you know, several people have said to me, electric cars are wonderful, but think about the little African kids in the mines digging out the lithium, you know, and the other associated stuff they're doing. There's a terrible sort of, in the raw materials, there's an arms trade with
Absolutely.
Gangs in you know, nastier parts of Africa are making thousands and thousands of dollars on this stuff that's being, you know, mined out by kids, and you think the world has to crack that. If you can create your electricity from solar power or renewables, then fine. I remember the chief engineer of Lotus talked to us motoring journalists 100 years ago, and he said, if you covered 100 square miles of the Sahara, which is not much, 10 miles by 10 miles,
Of course, yeah.
100 square miles of the Sahara in solar panels, you would generate enough electricity to create hydrogen by electrolysis to power the world's vehicles.
Really?
And he produced, you know, graphs and, you know, complicated formulas to illustrate the point, and said, yeah, you know, and of course, he said basically you dip 2 electrodes in the Mediterranean, create the hydrogen, water vapor comes out of the exhaust, forms into clouds, rains, and goes back into the Mediterranean. So it's a no-win, you know.
It's a really difficult thing because I think the world is just expanding and the need for vehicles is increasing. But we talk about the lithium and the various finite raw materials that are within batteries, and it's not just thinking about the cars, it's thinking about the phones, it's thinking about the electronic goods.
Yeah.
And so you're right, it is such a wider problem, and it's not...
You can see people who commute and they've got a plug, you know, in their home, and they're only doing 30 miles to work and 30 miles back or whatever. Yeah, it makes sense. That's, you know, it works. But I went on a very long trip the other day and tweeted that I'd filled up with diesel, and my trip computer said 55 miles to the gallon, 620-mile range. And that's why I'm not buying an electric car. So of course I got a torrent of abuse from the EV people. But I think that's true. You don't want to interrupt your journey for 45, 50 minutes or an hour while you sit around doing nothing and wait for the thing to recharge. It's a nonsense.
No, and I think as well, where I live up north, there are a lot of terraced houses. Now, if you're in a terraced house, you don't have the luxury of having a driveway.
Tripping over all these cables.
Exactly. It's one of those things, I think that personally it should be an option, not a finite conclusion. So you've got almost in the same way you can pick petrol or diesel, you should be able to pick electric, but it doesn't work for every single person. And as you say, you do considerable amounts of mileage. You don't have the time. You might have to stop 3-4 times to get where you need to go.
Well, I took my camper van round the Hebrides and ferry hopping between the islands. Can you imagine how many electric recharging points there are you know, in the Hebrides. And one of the camper van converters is saying he's going to do an electric camper van. It will be 80,000 quid, and it'll have a range of 180 miles. And you think, that's a nonsense. You get in your camper van and drive to the other end of all over Europe. You know, you can't be stopping every 180 miles for an hour and a half to recharge. It can't. It doesn't work.
Not at all. And £80,000 is a lot of money. It's a sizable house deposit.
Yes.
You've got to think about your market.
Well, it's us old people, you see, who own all the property, and we are the selfish generation with our pensions and our.
I hate when people say this. I don't. Do you know? I think
I'm going to get lynched by young people. You know, my grandchildren probably.
And that's it. It's funny, isn't it? I know we're going wildly off tangent, but I think one of the things that we could do to really break down some barriers is demystify the generations from each other. I've learned so much by being in a car club and getting to know older people, and it does demystify. It gets rid of all the tropes and all the nonsense, and you get to see really deep down we're all the same.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, we're all the same. Now we're going to take a trip down memory lane. So first of all, what's your favourite memory in a Citroen?
Ooh, I've got so many. I loved my old Traxion. In fact, the Traxion Owners Club were showing me a picture of my old car at a meeting the other day. I love my old car. I've done so many really fast trips in Citroens. I went down to the south of Spain in an XM Turbo 3 litre, and we covered a huge mileage in a very short time in that, and I think my passenger went through about 3 packets of cigarettes and tore off most of his fingernails in the process, but that was quite an epic trip because we were under pressure to get there to do some filming when we got there.
Dare I ask what speed you were going?
Very fast. But I was just telling James the same story, that I was coming back from the BMW factory in a 750 BMW, and I'm going bloody quick, and a pair of yellow lights came up behind me. I thought, what the hell's that? Is it the police? You know?
Yeah.
And a CX went past me.
Really?
I thought, my God, what's, you know? And he must have been doing 160, something like that.
Wow.
You know? And he's obviously had it chipped and turbocharged and everything else, you know. But no, I, as I said to you, my memory of them is that a designer has made them. It's not a market research, you know, a pressure group who have discussed what they want to see in a car, and the cost accountants haven't stepped in and said, no, you can't do that, you know, we must do this and we must do that. There must have, you know, and it was the idiosyncrasies of the Citroen that really attracted me. But then when the BX came out, the managing director of Citroen lectured us motoring journalists and said, you must forget about the old cars. You are so obsessed with old cars. This is the future. BX, it is a new car. It will not break down. It has no stupidity. And we said, well, yeah, but it's still a Citroen, and it is different, you know. But he went to great lengths to try and play down the history of Citroen.
That's interesting. So staying on memory lane, if I said to you, I've got a workshop full of all the cars that you've ever owned, which car would you want back?
Do you know, that's quite a difficult question. I think I've always enjoyed, I've owned a lot of cars over the years, and of course I've borrowed a lot of cars, you know, because test cars come and go, you know. And I think each car has its own identity, and people say to me, you know, what's your favourite car? What should I buy? And I say, it's up to you. It's your choice. It's your lifestyle. What do you use it for? You know, what are you going to do with it? And you can always find a car to fit that particular, how many kids you've got? Dogs,
Yeah.
do you go for picnics? Do you go windsurfing? What do you tow a boat? Do you tow a caravan? You can break down what people's lives are, and then find a car, classic car or a modern car, to fit
Yeah.
exactly that criteria. So that's a very difficult question. I loved the original Lotus Elite. I always thought was the most beautiful car, and I always say it had the most perfect instrument panel that you've ever seen, and that was very early on. I bought that, and then I worked on local newspapers and everything, and I progressed onto Autocar magazine. And this bloke phoned me up and said, "Did you own 3004AT?" And I said, "Yes,
Yeah.
that's my Lotus Elite." He said, "We've restored it. Do you want to come and see it?" So I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." So I drove down to see it, and it was fantastic. He resprayed it in dark brown with a light brown fawn roof and chrome wire wheels. It looked perfect. I got in it. And he said, "Do you want to take it for a drive?" And I said, "Oh, I'd love to." I fired it up, and that Coventry Climax engine went again, and the steering wheel went about 3 feet round, and we came out and crashed over a few potholes. And I thought, I know why I got rid of this bloody car, and I'm really pleased I did.
Oh, so that's probably not the one you bring back then?
No, my last car. Whatever my last car was. I'm quite nostalgic about cars, and I've always enjoyed them. I had an MGB drophead with a relatively highly tuned Rover V8 in it,
Nice.
and I really liked that a lot. I slightly regretted getting rid of that, but pressure of space and kids and dogs.
Yeah. So for those people out there that haven't bought their first car yet, they might be a learner driver, they might have been saving up the pennies. What Citroen out there would you say is a really great first car for the average driver?
Well, you wouldn't say 2CV, would you? Because you've got to be an expert to drive a 2CV for a start. And do you mean a classic or a modern one?
Oh, well, classic and a modern. Which two would you pick? So someone buying their first classic Citroen, what would you pick?
I suppose I would. Having said that, yeah. I suppose you would say a 2CV actually, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Nice and easy to fix. Plenty of people, plenty of parts.
Yeah, well, huge club support and,
absolutely.
And lots of spares for it. Yeah.
Absolutely. In terms of a modern Citroen, so they're doing just.
I don't know anything about modern cars. I don't drive modern cars.
I don't either.
I mean, you look at the the sort of the magazines and things and think, oh, here's the latest whatever it is. You think, I've no idea what this bloody is. And I've got no idea about all these Chinese EVs coming in. Are you keeping track of that? I mean, there's names coming in that I've never heard in my life.
Is it? I saw one the other day.
The Great Wall.
Is it called Honky or Honkei?
Yeah.
And it's got a really similar logo actually to Rover. And I'd never heard of them before. I mean, I'll be honest, it's really my weak area. I don't keep up with all of it because it doesn't excite me. And I was hoping to get some inspiration from you.
No,
what new
you won't
car
get it from
excites
me.
you?
I'm just a nostalgic old man, and I will chatter away for hours about how great older cars were, and what look what we're sitting around, no, a lot of it leaves me. I mean, I drive a modern car because it's convenient, and I can chuck everything in it and go for miles. But as I say to you, it's personality, isn't it? It's your personality. What do you drive?
What do I drive? Oh goodness, nothing this week because everything's broken and I'm borrowing a Triumph 1500 from a dear friend. But typically I drive the Morris Minor and I've got
I went to the Morris Minor factory in Sri Lanka.
Was it good? The ones that make the
Charlie
panels?
Ware in Bath said to me, I get my spares made in a factory. And I said, where? And he said, it's a factory in Sri Lanka. And I said, go away. Anyway, we were on holiday in Sri Lanka, and I said to my wife, I've got to go to this bloody Morris Minor factory. And there was a row of highly skilled men with planishing hammers and sheets of metal and hollowed out coconut tree
Is that how they do
stumps. And they were hand beating Morris Minor wings and panels and things, you know, but they had a press, and they'd bought, either through Charlie or somewhere, they'd bought some of the old tools from Cowley.
Really?
And they got the old machine tools for the bigger pressings, you know, and
Wow.
but the frame of the press was wood, beautifully constructed, with two JCB rams installed in the wood as the press. And I said, what sort of pressure is this pressing at? And he said, well, it bends the metal. so that's all they wanted to know.
Well, I think you've answered my question why the panels don't fit amazingly well then.
Yes, exactly. Well, hand dressing. People don't understand that, you know, older cars, the panels don't necessarily fit. And when the first MG body shells came out from, I can't remember where the factory is, they had, I went along to it, and they got the old MG employees from Abingdon,
Yeah.
and they were showing owners who'd just bought a new Heritage body shell how to dress the shell.
Oh.
Of course, they all turned up with their 5-pound hammers
Yeah.
and crowbars, beating 7 bells out of these body shells. These people had just paid thousands of pounds for them. What are they doing to my... Oh, it's all right, Governor, just to make the door fit a bit. Bam, bam, bam. You know? It was amazing. It was so funny.
That's brilliant. You just don't get that anymore. It's just not as fun, is it? So I'm going to leave on a forward note, really. So for somebody who's watching this and is thinking, wow, Chris Goffey's career, I would love to even achieve half of that in my own. What tips would you give to would-be motoring journalists who want to have even half the success that you've had in your lifetime?
Keep at it. I started on the Ruislip Northwood Post, doing parish councils, weddings, funerals, you know, and magistrates' courts, police calls, you know, as local journalists do, and then convinced an editor to let me do a motoring column, and it all stemmed from there. I don't think I've ever been interviewed for a job.
Oh, really?
In my entire career, I can't remember being interviewed for a job. I've sort of gone along with people and they've said, do you want to do this? And I've said, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go, you know. And it's been like that really ever since. So I've been very, very lucky. But the advice is keep at it. You get your first job, you want to be in telly, be a runner and run. You know, one of my grandsons is working as a runner for Sky, and he said, what shall I do? I said, run. You know, if somebody wants a coffee, run. You know,
Yeah.
if the cameraman wants a bit of kit, run for it. You know, make sure you're seen to be working as hard as you possibly can.
Yeah.
And when the breaks come, take the breaks.
Yeah. That's some really good advice, I think, because quite often is you just seem to see people go from here to over here and you don't hear about that bit in the middle where they've worked really hard on the little things which accumulate in the wider success.
Yeah.
So no, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the rest of the rally. We've been ever so fortunate
That will come down to about 30 seconds by the time you've taken out all my ridiculous histrionics.
No, I've really enjoyed chatting to you today. I think you've been
Thank you.
brilliantly candid. You've shared some amazing stories. I think everybody who's watching at home will thoroughly enjoy it too. I'm not going to cut anything out. Right, that's it from us. We're off to go and get a coffee, but wherever you are in the world, have a brilliant day and take care and drive safely.